Did aliens build the pyramids? Has NASA been hiding the fact that the moon is hollow? Is the infographics show funded by the CIA? Today we're going to 100% definitively debunk some of the most popular conspiracy theories of all time. And get ready, because we're going to go quite in depth on these too. So you can finally shut your friend up who insists that the information they got from a sketchy social media account with 6 followers is somehow more accurate than the consensus of the entire scientific community. These are crazy conspiracy theories that turned out to be fake, mostly. First up, your friend's most annoying theory: flat Earth. It's 500 BC, and the debate over whether the Earth is flat or round is raging. Wait, we mean it's 2024 and it's been about 2,500 years since most people accepted that the Earth was round. But just like a round spinning Earth in space, here we are all over again. Flat Earth theory has been around since the dawn of time. Ancient cultures believed that the Earth was a flat plane, sometimes a square, other times a disc shape, or even a partial dome-shaped object, floating on either the back of some giant animal or a god. The Egyptians and Mesopotamians believed the Earth was a disk that floated on top of a vast ocean. Ancient Greeks also believed that the Earth was flat and floated along a body of water that itself was a primordial titan named Okeanos. It would be from the Israelites, though, that we get our more quote-unquote modern understanding of a flat Earth. They believed that the Earth was a massive disk floating on water, and above it a solid firmament separated the Earth from the realm of heaven. The sun, moon, planets, and other stars were all affixed to this firmament, which moved over our heads to create sunrises and sunsets, and transitions from days to night. On the way to a correct spherical model of the Earth, the flat Earth theory was tweaked to come in line better with advancing knowledge. Archelaus, a Greek philosopher from the 5th century BC, believed that the Earth was flat, but was depressed in the center, sort of like a dinner plate. This explained why the sun and moon would set at different times for different people. However, even by the 5th century BC, most people already believed in a spherical Earth, even if they didn't really have evidence for it. The ancient Greeks considered a sphere to be the perfect shape, and Pythagoras is credited as being one of the earliest proponents of the Earth as a sphere, though this was largely for aesthetic reasons rather than having solid proof of it. Modern flat earthers adhere to a variety of beliefs about the nature of the planet, though the most modern flat Earth theory suggests the Earth is surrounded by massive walls of ice at the edges, and maintains the ancient firmament theory upon which the moon, sun, and stars are duct taped to. This explains sunsets and sunrises, and flat earthers believe that the sun is not a spherical object casting light in all directions, but rather it operates more like a flashlight and moves in a circular manner over the Earth. Others say the sun bobs below the plane of the Earth to create a sunset, while others yet claim the sun simply gets further away until it's no longer visible. To say that there is some inconsistency to their beliefs would be an understatement, and that's where you end up if you deny the scientific method. A hodgepodge of makeshift theories attempting to explain the observable, and all in contradiction to each other. Here's the truth about therapy people often overlook: you don't need to have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety to benefit from it. Therapy is a safe space where you can share what's on your mind, whether it's stress, sadness, worries, or relationship issues, without fear of judgment. A therapist is there to listen, ask questions, and help you see things from new perspectives. They can provide insights and teach techniques to manage emotions, reduce stress, and make positive changes in your life. Seeking therapy is actually a sign of strength and self-awareness. It takes courage to acknowledge when you need help and to take steps to improve your mental health. While therapy can be costly, there are affordable options available, like online therapy platforms. BetterHelp is the sponsor of this video, and they're on a mission to make starting therapy easier. BetterHelp is a platform where therapists and their clients can communicate effectively and get the most out of therapy. Starting therapy is easy with BetterHelp. Fill out a questionnaire and you'll match with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. If you're struggling and you think you'd benefit from a therapy session, click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/infographics and get 10% off your first month of therapy. Now let's return to our spherical Earth model, which is not only objectively correct, but perfectly answers every problem flat earthers bend themselves out of shape trying to explain. Okay, your formerly flat Earth believing friend says, the Earth might not be flat, and maybe the moon isn't either, but it is definitely hollow. What? It's been over 50 years since man first landed on the moon, and as we explored more of the moon, we began to realize This is kind of a weird place, but weird enough for NASA to spend over half a century without going back? That's probably because the moon is full of spiders. Well, full of something. And remember, there is no empirical evidence that it isn't spiders, but it's also mostly empty. At least that's what it seemed like after conducting our first observation of the moon's interior. And a shocking recent discovery could prove this theory correct. It's known as hollow moon theory, and unlike flat Earth theory, there's actually good scientific reason to believe it, or at least there was for a time. When astronauts first landed on the moon, one of the things they wanted to help figure out was how geologically active the moon really was. Most theories posited that the moon was basically a dead satellite, its core having cooled long ago due to its small size. However, in 1969, scientists started getting data back from the first seismometers, and they were stunned to realize that the moon was actually geologically active. But this activity revealed something that should be impossible. They would get more data during the Apollo 12 mission. After installing more seismometers, Apollo 12's lunar module blasted up into orbit to rendezvous with the transfer vehicle. Mission planners would make use of this opportunity, and when the ascent stage of the lunar module was used up, they detached it on a suborbital trajectory, ensuring it would crash back down into the moon. It was littering for science, and the ascent stage smashed into the surface at a healthy clip of multiple meters per second. To everyone's surprise, the moon rang, quote, like a bell, for nearly an hour. There would be more experiments conducted in later missions, and impactors purposefully aimed to smash into the face of the moon. One impact even resulted in the moon ringing for nearly 3 hours, indicating that something extremely strange was going on. There's no two ways about this. Even with these experiments, the moon is a weird egg, possibly literally. The most widely held theory on the formation of the moon is that billions of years ago, a smaller planetoid known as Theia went out on the town with her girls as they tried to cheer her up after her recent breakup. Instead, Theia drunkenly smashed into the Earth, causing the two bodies to come apart before the momentum hurled a chunk of combined Earth and Theia material into space. And that would eventually form into our moon. This is a good theory that explains a lot of what we observe about the moon. Unfortunately, the evidence to confirm it is seriously lacking. When astronauts brought back moon rocks for a bunch of rock nerds to study, the nerds expected different isotope ratios in the materials from what we found here on Earth. This would be part of Theia, as each planet's chemical signature is different based on where in the solar system it formed. To their surprise, though, the rocks had the exact same isotopic composition as the Earth. There was no evidence of a second heavenly body in any of the rock's chemical signatures. This has stumped scientists to this day, who have proposed that maybe Theia had the exact same isotopic composition as the Earth, a suggestion that would basically force us to completely toss out our theories on how the solar system was created in the first place. All of this weirdness, along with the experiments that strongly hinted that the moon was hollow, led to two Soviet scientists coming to what was at the time a perfectly logical conclusion. The moon was a hollow spaceship probably full of spiders. Michael Vasin and Alexander Shcherbakov, Soviet scientists from the Soviet Academy of Sciences, a very respected institution, created this theory after looking at NASA's data and making some calculations of their own. With the data strongly suggesting the moon could either be hollow or have massive cavernous spaces inside, they concluded that it could be an artificial creation. Since we know that large bodies do not naturally form to be hollow, the story would make its way to the West in lightning speed, gaining global recognition for the theory that lasts to this day. So, is the moon really hollow? Vasin and Shcherbakov might have been using available data, but it was incomplete and low quality. Better seismic observations would reveal that while yes, the moon's makeup is in fact kinda weird, it's definitely not hollow. In fact, the moon has a solid inner core surrounded by a smaller fluid outer core, itself wrapped in a partial melt. The varying density of the material makes the moon very different from the Earth, and it accounts for the ease through which the vibrations pass across its body. But doubters would have irrefutable proof in 1998 when the United States launched the Lunar Prospector probe, which carried aboard the Doppler gravity experiment. This would allow the probe to map the entire moon's gravity field, allowing scientists to learn more about its internal mass distribution. Once again, the data showed that the moon could not, in fact, be hollow. Or maybe NASA was hiding the truth. In 2024, NASA made a shocking discovery. For the first time, they were able to image the entrance to a lunar cave, something predicted to exist on the moon but never before discovered. Where this cave leads, nobody knows, but it's probably spiders. So the Earth isn't flat, and the moon isn't hollow, and it's been a tough day for your conspiracy-minded friend. But they've got one you absolutely cannot disprove, that Jackie Gleason was shown actual alien bodies by Richard Nixon. First up, who's Jackie Gleason? For those of us born after the fall of the Berlin Wall, Jackie Gleason was one of the first superstars, a comedian, actor, and musician who was so popular and successful he was given the nickname the Great One. Jackie Gleason was also fascinated with the UFO topic and other paranormal phenomenon. In fact, for several years in the 50s, he was part of a radio show exploring the paranormal. But the hard-drinking, beloved Hollywood actor would get a chance to verify his belief, and none other than the President of the United States would be his means to do so. Gleason wasn't just Richard Nixon's favorite comedian, he had been an avid supporter of the Nixon campaign. The two were personal friends, with Nixon and Gleason often playing golf together. But on February 19, 1973, Nixon would let Gleason in on the biggest secret in human history. Gleason was known to be a longtime UFO enthusiast, even having built a home that looked like a UFO. Later that night, around midnight, Gleason would get the surprise of his life, as the president himself was standing on his doorstep, a car waiting behind him. Having ditched his Secret Service detail, Nixon drove Gleason to Homestead Air Force Base just outside Miami. The gate guards, surprised to see the president, quickly waved him through, and Nixon drove on to the far end of the base, where sat a heavily guarded building. The security staff had been alerted to the president's arrival, and they were ready, waving him and his guest through without objection. Taking an elevator down several floors, the two emerged into a floor filled with science labs. As they passed, Gleason could see pieces of mangled wreckage, apparently being studied by the currently departed staff. This, Nixon said, is what was recovered at Roswell, the crashed remains of an alien flying saucer. But the tour wasn't over. Gleason then said that he was led deeper into the facility, where he finally came to a chamber filled with freezers. At Nixon's invitation, Gleason approached one of the freezers and looked inside, spotting at first what he thought was the badly mangled body of a large child. But as he wiped the frost from the glass away, Gleason was shocked to discover that these weren't children, they weren't even human. He was looking at the remains of an alien pilot pulled from the wreckage of a UFO. Next to him were more freezers, all of them filled with frozen alien remains. Gleason was badly shaken by the discovery of alien life, and Nixon swore him to secrecy. Upon returning home, he was unable to sleep and paced all night until finally collapsing in exhaustion. For the next several weeks, the hard-drinking Gleason hit the bottle especially hard and had difficulty sleeping or even eating. Finally, he broke and confided the entire experience to his wife, Beverly. Jackie and Beverly, however, were on the verge of getting a divorce already, and in 1974 she would betray Gleason by retelling the story in an interview with Esquire, hoping to drum up interest in her upcoming memoir of her relationship with Gleason. Gleason would refuse to comment on the incident until 1986, when close to his death he invited Larry Warren, a witness to the Rendlesham Forest incident in Britain, to his house. In a private interview, Gleason told Warren the whole tale. A year later, Gleason was dead. Now, before we deconstruct this story, let's talk about what might be true. Next, we do have multiple compelling records of downed flying saucers being recovered by the government. Famously, the Roswell incident involved the Army coming out and publicly stating, completely unprompted, that it had in fact recovered a flying saucer. Later, the military would change its story multiple times, ultimately claiming that what was recovered was debris from a top-secret balloon meant to sniff out signs of Soviet nuclear tests. And yet, the children of one of those officers involved in the recovery would never recant their claim that their father had indeed brought home strange materials that could not have been mistaken as anything made by humans, let alone the tinfoil presented in the now infamous retraction of the original story. Ultimately, the incident raises the question, why would the military personnel involved even bother to put out a fake cover story nationwide for a balloon crash in the desert near a tiny New Mexico town when nobody would have ever heard the crash otherwise? And why would they use a crashed alien saucer as a cover story, only bringing more scrutiny to whatever it is they were allegedly trying to hide? Something stinks here. But back to Gleason and the alien bodies, because unfortunately, that's about the only parts of the story that are even remotely feasible. We know from Nixon's diary that Nixon was at Gleason's golf club that day for approximately 40 minutes before leaving. The diary isn't much help in piecing together what happened next. And unfortunately, Nixon didn't write an entry stating, "Dear Diary, today I showed Jackie Gleason alien bodies." However, the entire claim comes not from Gleason himself, but rather his ex-wife, Beverly. Except she didn't perform an interview with Esquire magazine as claimed. There's no mention of such an interview anywhere in the magazine's archives. And even the secret reptilian shadow government would be hard-pressed to erase the existence of an interview on a magazine with as much circulation as Esquire. Surely at least one copy would still exist with the interview in it. Next, we have Larry Warren, who claims to have been involved in the Rendlesham Forest incident and to have been invited to Jackie's home for the confessional. Whether the Rendlesham Forest incident truly was a UFO or not, we don't know. What we do know is that none of the witnesses have endorsed Warren's version of the events. In fact, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, Deputy Base Commander, and the most senior witness of the time, refutes Warren's version entirely. But not even Warren claims to have met with Gleason. Instead, that story comes from Timothy Green Beckley, another UFO author, who wrote it as part of his book on celebrity encounters with UFOs entitled UFOs Among the Stars. Ultimately, while there is evidence to support the UFO phenomenon being real, there is simply no basis to believe that Richard Nixon got drunk and showed off dead aliens to Jackie Gleason. But again, if any president would have done this, it definitely would have been Nixon, so who knows? Alright, no flat earth, no hollow moon, no Jackie Gleason aliens, no fun at all. Now go stuff your delicious brain with insane conspiracy theories that turned out to be true, or click this other video instead.